Okay, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, firstly, welcome. This is me trying to chronicle my personal development journey over the year and to just talk about life. I think that's the underlying dynamic to this. As I've said before, and I will continue to say, these videos are done unedited, all in one take. The reason being, I want to test myself in front of a camera and record myself practicing, because I've never really liked speaking in public or in front of a camera. And the idea is for me to do at least one of these every week. Originally, I planned to do it every 2 weeks, but I've got myself into this habit of doing every week. And this is really about putting in the reps. As I keep saying, the more practice you do, the better you'll get, or the better I'll get. Let's put it back onto me. The more practice I do, the more practice, the better I'll get. And I can look at this in 6 months' time, a year's time, and think, wow, how have you improved? And that's really what this is about, because I know that I can be better at speaking in public or public speaking. I've done a lot of it, but I always have these moments of churning inside, strangled throat feeling, and that's natural, and I've got to get used to that. But the idea is for me to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the more I see myself speak, the more I can get used to myself speaking. So as I've said before, try this yourself, put it onto YouTube, see who sees it. Maybe nobody will see it, but that's okay. That's part and parcel of this process. You try it, no one sees it, you're the only audience that matters in this situation. So my topic for today is one I've thought about for a while, and it's slightly away from the personal development dynamic I've been talking about. Is I am an expat living in Asia. I'm from London, and I've been living abroad for a long time, more than a decade and a half, let's put it that way. So a very long time. But I'm a black expat. So what is it like being a black expat living in Asia? Okay, so that's really my topic today. So I guess the first thing to provide some context, many years ago after university, I went backpacking, as a lot of young kids did back in those days. Straight after university, went to Asia because my friends were doing it. It seemed to sound like a good idea. I'd never been to Asia. I'd never done a long haul flight at that point. And for those 5-6 months that I was traveling, it was some of the most life affirming experiences I'd ever had. Again, I was just a kid from London who hadn't really been far, hadn't been to the US, hadn't been to Africa, hadn't been to Asia, hadn't been to Australia. I'd been to France, I'd been to Italy. I did an interrail around Europe for 3 weeks just after my A-levels. So I'd been to some places, but I hadn't been to many places. And so when I went around Asia, I loved it. I guess it's one of those things that I didn't mind standing out, because there weren't many people that looked like me walking around, but I didn't feel uncomfortable standing out. So if you go back to, say, 90s in the UK, where I'm from, and you went to certain parts of northern England. Now, things have changed to some extent, probably not enough in some dynamics, but if you'd gone to certain parts of the north of England, went into a town and into a bar, looked like me, stood out, you wouldn't have felt comfortable. I wouldn't have felt comfortable. Now, transition that to being in Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok or Singapore, and just seeing going into bars, and yes, you stood out, but you didn't feel threatened. You felt kind of like, well, kind of special, if that's the right phrase. And so back then, I always had this affinity with Asia, because the people, generally speaking, particularly in the south of Asia, are incredibly warm. Okay, you stand out, you're different, but you're not seen as a threat. And that's really one of those things I've kind of thought about. Anyway, so I remember on that trip thinking, one day, I can imagine myself living in, at the time, thinking about Singapore. I could imagine myself living in Singapore. Without going into the ins and outs, long story short, I didn't end up in Singapore. I've ended up in Hong Kong. So I live in Asia, and I've done so for many years. Now, is there racism in Asia? There's racism everywhere. I mean, you can't deny it. I'm not even going to pretend to deny it. But it's almost different, if that's the right dynamic. Again, the element of not feeling uncomfortable in terms of feeling as if I will be attacked. I don't think I feel that. Well, maybe sometimes in the UK I kind of would have felt that. But certainly around Asia, no. You know, in certain parts of Asia, I'll be honest, I think they're more interested in the colour of your money than your colour of your skin. So as long as they don't feel that you are, what's the word? Someone who is going to drag down society, if that's the right phrase. A threat, an issue, a beggar, call it what you will. So in other words, I don't feel that I am viewed in the same way as a lot as I would in certain parts of the world, parts of Europe. Let's put it that way. And it's almost quite strange going to an underground station and seeing the police stop young local boys for whatever reason. They're stopping them, and me being able to walk on knowing that they wouldn't really stop me, because why would they stop me? If I was in the UK, yeah, I could imagine once in a while, excuse me sir, can I search your bag? You know, and that's happened to me in the past in the UK, let's be honest. So I kind of feel that being out in Asia, it's an environment that has allowed me to be me, you know, without feeling threatened, without worrying about the police, without being judged before knowing me. And another dynamic, I spent some time in the US as well. Another dynamic, obviously I've got a British accent, so I almost feel like I got a free pass at times for sounding like this, as opposed to sounding like a black American. It's the idea that maybe they viewed me as different enough to be different to the average African American person. I don't know, but all I know is the dynamic of being judged was very different for me in the US compared to African American friends I had in the US. That was clear. So yeah, it's strange being an expat, a black expat, because we see things slightly differently to my white expat friends who have basically always had the freedom to do as they please wherever they are. Here, I feel I can be me, knowing that in certain contexts back in my home country, I would be challenged, judged, accused, fill in the gaps on that space. It's just a thought, it's just some thoughts here. So I live in Asia. I love living in Asia. At some point, we will, as a family, move back to the UK. But for now, I'm enjoying the experience here. I'll probably speak again about being an expat, because that's how I'm different, if you will, on the internet. There's 1,000 people talking about personal development, 1 billion people talking about productivity. Career advice, financial advice, all the stuff that I know about because I've trained and that's been my work. But not everybody is a black expat living in Asia, has been there for over 10, 15, pushing 20 years. Not many people have that dynamic. So that's probably something I will have to return to. But I still want to also talk about my general personal development journey over this year, maybe into next year. And we'll see. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, subscribe, because I will definitely make my channel slightly more dynamic over time. That's it. As I said, this is all about practicing speaking in public, but ultimately this time had a interesting dynamic. So until next time, bye-bye for now.